The company that invented digital photography was destroyed by digital photography. Not beaten to it by a competitor. Not blindsided by some Silicon Valley startup it never saw coming. Kodak built the world's first digital camera itself, in its own lab, with its own engineer, in 1975, a full generation before the rest of the world caught up. And then it did something that sounds insane until you understand the money behind it. It looked at the future it had just invented, understood exactly what it meant, and quietly locked it in a drawer. This is the story of the most dominant company in the history of photography, a giant that once employed nearly 150,000 people and owned 90% of its market, and how it walked, open-eyed, into its own destruction. Because Kodak's problem was never that it failed to see the future. Its problem was that seeing the future wasn't enough. Follow the money. To understand why Kodak buried the future, you first have to understand how obscenely well its present was working. Kodak was founded in 1888 by George Eastman, a man who had one genuinely revolutionary idea: photography should be for everyone. Before Kodak, taking a picture was a technical ordeal for professionals. Eastman's promise was radical in its simplicity: you press the button, we do the rest. He sold a simple box camera to ordinary people, and just like that, the modern snapshot was born. But the camera was never how Kodak made its fortune. And this is the part that explains everything. Kodak ran what's often called the razor and blades model. The razor, the camera, was cheap, sometimes almost given away. The blades were the film. Because every photograph an entire planet wanted to take required Kodak film to capture it, and Kodak chemicals and Kodak paper to develop and print it. One camera sold once, the film and processing sold forever, roll after roll, print after print, at astonishing profit margins. Kodak wasn't really a camera company. It was a company that sold the recurring, high-margin consumable that every camera on Earth depended on. And it was staggeringly good at it. For most of the 20th century, Kodak's yellow boxes were everywhere. At its height in the mid-1990s, the company controlled around 90% of all film sold in the United States, and about 85% of the cameras. Its revenues topped $16 billion. Kodak moment entered the language as a phrase meaning a memory worth keeping. This was one of the most powerful, most trusted brands on the planet, sitting on top of a money machine that printed cash with every family holiday, every birthday, every wedding. Now hold that picture in your mind, a company whose entire fortune rested on people buying physical film. And ask what happens to that company the day someone invents a camera that never needs film again. The answer arrived in 1975, and it arrived from inside Kodak itself. A young Kodak engineer named Stephen Sasson was given a vague, low-priority assignment: see if there was anything useful you could do with a new kind of electronic sensor called a charge-coupled device. Working largely alone, Sasson wired that sensor to a lens, some circuitry, and a portable cassette tape deck. What he built, and switched on for the first time in December 1975, was the world's first digital camera. By modern standards, it was almost comically primitive. It weighed about 8 pounds, closer to a toaster than a camera. It shot in black and white at a resolution of 100 by 100 pixels. That's 1/100th of a single megapixel. And after you took a photo, it took 23 full seconds to record that image onto the cassette tape. To show the picture, Sasson had to play the tape back through a computer and onto a television screen. It was crude. It was slow. And it was, unmistakably, the future. Because the one thing it did that no camera before it had ever done was capture a photograph using no film at all. Sasson took it to Kodak's management. And here is where the myth and the truth part ways. The popular version says Kodak panicked and covered it up. The real story is quieter and far more damning. In Sasson's own words, the reaction was one of curiosity and skepticism. They didn't dismiss it as impossible. They saw exactly what it was. He described the feeling in the room as a very scary look at what could be possible in the future. And that was precisely the problem. Kodak's entire business was built on selling film. Here was a device whose whole point was that it needed none. Championing it would mean aiming a weapon at their own golden goose. So they did the rational thing, rational for a company addicted to film. They studied it, they even filed a patent on it in 1977, and then they put it away. The patent, granted in 1978, would go on to earn Kodak a fortune in licensing fees from other companies' digital cameras years later, a bitter irony we'll come back to. But the camera itself was never developed into a product. It was shelved. You have to sit with the math they were doing, because it wasn't stupid, it was a trap. Every dollar a customer spent on digital was a dollar not spent on film. But digital, in 1975, made almost no profit, while film was one of the most profitable consumer products in the world. So from inside the machine, embracing digital didn't look like embracing the future. It looked like voluntarily setting fire to your own most profitable business to chase a worse one. No executive whose bonus depended on this year's film sales was ever going to do that. The more money film made, the more impossible it became to walk away from it. Success wasn't protecting Kodak. It was quietly handcuffing it to the one product that was about to become obsolete. For a while, the trap held, because for a while, the future was slow. Through the 1980s and into the 1990s, digital cameras stayed expensive, clunky, and low quality, and film kept minting money. Kodak could tell itself it had time. But technology like this doesn't improve in a straight line, it improves quietly, and then all at once. As sensors got cheaper and better every year, the crossover finally came. By the early 2000s, digital cameras were good enough, and cheap enough, for ordinary people. And then came the second wave that finished the job, the camera phone, putting a decent digital camera in every pocket on Earth. The demand for film didn't decline. It fell off a cliff. And the cruelest part is that Kodak wasn't even absent from digital. It saw the wave coming and tried to ride it. It made digital cameras, and for a brief period in the mid-2000s it actually sold more digital cameras in the US than anyone. But it was trapped by its own logic at every turn. It made almost no profit on the digital cameras themselves, because the whole industry had abandoned the razor and blades model. There was no film to sell on the back end. Worse, every digital camera it sold personally accelerated the death of its own film business. The most heartbreaking example, in 2001, Kodak bought a photo-sharing website called Ofoto. It had, sitting right there in its hands, a business that let people share photographs online, essentially an early version of exactly what would soon be worth billions. And what did Kodak do with it? It used Ofoto mainly to encourage people to print their digital photos on Kodak paper. It took a window into the future of sharing and tried to bend it back towards selling prints, because prints were what it knew how to make money on. In its bankruptcy years later, it sold Ofoto for less than $25 million. On January 19, 2012, Eastman Kodak, 124 years old, a company that had defined how the human race remembered its own life, filed for bankruptcy. And history delivered the verdict with almost unbelievable timing. That same year, 2012, Facebook bought a little photo-sharing app called Instagram. Instagram had no film, no factories, no chemicals, and roughly 13 employees. It had never made a dollar of profit. Facebook paid $1 billion for it. In the same 12 months that a company which once employed 145,000 people making photographs collapsed, a photo company with 13 people sold for $1 billion. The whole shift, compressed into a single year. So what actually killed Kodak? The easy answer, the one people reach for, is that Kodak was a dinosaur that failed to innovate and missed the digital revolution. But that answer is not just wrong, it's backwards. Kodak didn't miss the digital revolution. Kodak invented the digital revolution in 1975 and held the patents. It saw the future more clearly and earlier than anyone else alive. seeing it was never the problem. What killed Kodak was something far more uncomfortable, because it's a trap that success sets for the strong, not the weak. Kodak's film business was so profitable, so dominant, so central to everything the company was, that walking away from it felt like insanity, right up until the moment staying became fatal. Every quarter, the rational, responsible, shareholder-friendly move was to protect the cash cow. And every quarter that they protected it, the future they had personally invented got a little closer to killing them. That's the real lesson, and it's a warning, not a comfort. The most dangerous thing a company, or a person, or an industry, can own is not a weak product that's obviously failing. You'll always fix that. It's a wildly successful one you can't imagine living without. Because that success doesn't feel like a weakness. It feels like strength, right up until it's the anchor that pulls you under. Kodak didn't die because it couldn't see the future. It died because it could see the future perfectly, and the money told it to look away. A dominant giant, an early warning it chose to ignore, a collapse that looked impossible until it was complete. If you want to see that exact same story run at 10 times the speed, a company that owned its entire industry and lost it in barely 5 years, that one is one click away. Follow the money.